So I think we're good to go. So I'm going to call this meeting to order. Um, so welcome for those attending via Zoom. Please note that it is our standard practice for members of the public to have their cameras off and microphones muted until it is time for the member to speak. Township staff can assist with muting microphones. If you require assistance, please use the chat function and ask staff. Public meetings have been called and notice circulated in accordance with the Planning Act with respect to applications for minor variance and or consent. The purpose of public meetings are to inform and provide the public with an opportunity to ask questions and express views with respect to the applications. The format of the public meeting is as follows. Township staff will explain the purpose of the application and report on all correspondence received. Next, the applicant will present any further relevant information. Next, the public will be permitted to ask questions and express views on the proposal. And then the public portion of the meeting will be closed. And next, members of the committee will be given the opportunity to ask questions for clarification of the application. After all comments have been received, the committee will consider the application with due regard to the presentations and views expressed this evening. The committee will then do one of three things: approve the application, deny the application, or defer the application pending receipt of additional information. Members of the public who have provided oral submissions or written objections but disagree with the committee's decision on an application may appeal the decision to the Ontario Land Tribunal as entitled under the Planning Act. The deadline for an appeal of consent applications is 20 days within the giving of notice, and for minor variances within 20 days of the decision date. When commenting on an application, please give your full name and address for the minutes. Please note that the names and addresses of those individuals who speak at this meeting will appear within the meeting minutes, which are public documents. If you wish to receive a copy of a decision, please leave your name and address with township staff. So I'm going to go through, move on to item B. So is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof from any committee members? Seeing none, I'm going to move on to item number C. So I'm going to call for a motion. So I have a motion before us, identified as COA 2023-049, moved by member Kish, second by member Bossy, that the minutes of the October 17th, 2023 Committee of Adjustment meeting be adopted as printed and distributed. I'm going to call for a vote. That all those in favor, we are carried. We have no adjourned applications this evening, so on to agenda item number E, which is new applications. So would township staff briefly introduce the application and report on any written response to the notice circulated for E1, which is an application for consent, B-05-23, and minor variance A-15-23.
Thank you, Chair. So as noted, the first application on the agenda this morning is a concurrent consent and minor variance application for the lands known as 3382 Azcona Avenue. The subject property is located within the fully serviced settlement area of West Shore. You can see the key map of the property on the screen here. And I included a bit more of an expanded aerial image so you can get an idea of the development patterns in the area. It is composed of residential development, infill style. Again, it is fully serviced settlement area. So this is where this type of growth and development is directed within the township. The subject property is currently zoned residential 1. The lands have a current approximate area of 1,006 square meters with an approximate frontage of 22.92 meters on Azcona Avenue. As discussed in the staff report, the lands were originally composed of 2 separately conveyable lots on a plan of subdivision. The lands were only just recently merged into a single parcel finalized in October of 2023 via a deeming bylaw passed by council. So the purpose of the application is to redivide the lands into a more even lot area and frontage. So essentially reverting back to 2 lots with a corrected lot area and frontage. So to accommodate the proposed severance, the applicant is also seeking a minor variance. So it's a bit hard to see, but it was included in the staff report. The applicant is seeking to divide the lands approximately in half. Both the proposed retained and severed lands would each have an approximate frontage of 44.46 meters, where 14 meters is required, and a proposed area of 503 square meters, where 600 square meters is required. The applicant did have a draft survey of the property prepared. So this is just a sketch of the subject property with part 1 and part 2 representing both the severed and retained, proposed severed and retained lands. There are additionally shown on the drawing here the footprint of, or conceptual footprint of 2 potential single detached dwellings, demonstrating that the appropriate setbacks can still be maintained. I did include a staff site photo, but it is a vacant property, so nothing too much to see here. This is just looking into the property off of Azcona Avenue. So as outlined in the staff report, the proposed consent and minor variances in staff's opinion are consistent with the PPS, the growth plan, the official plan, and would meet the 4 tests for a minor variance. Again, the application would facilitate development within a fully serviced settlement area through infill development and gentle intensification. This is where this type of development is encouraged in the township by the applicable policy documents. The Public Works Department did provide some comments on the application, stated no objections, but mostly just wanted to provide comments to the applicant. So with the proposed reduced frontage, the maximum allowable width of the driveways would be 5.73 meters. As included in the conditions or recommended conditions, the applicant would need to apply for an entrance permit for both the new and the new and retained lot. Existing water and sewer services are located approximately in the middle of the existing lot. Standard condition is continue to be recommended that water and sewer connection agreement would be needed. The Public Works Department has provided additional drawings to be provided to the applicant, just indicating where the approximate services are along Azcona Avenue for your information. Staff can follow up and provide those to you. And then the curb stop for the water service and clean out T for the sanitary service are not to be located within the driveway. So that would just be reviewed at the time of entrance permit application. Enbridge also provided comments, just saying that they do not object to the proposed application, but reserve the right to amend their development conditions. Standard condition for any consent application, they do note that is the responsibility of the applicants to verify the existing gas servicing does not encroach on more than one property. They do provide additional contact information if the applicant has any questions. However, no further comments or objections were received from any other internal township departments. So based on the analysis included in the staff report, planning and development staff have no objections to the provisional approval of the consent application and the approval of the minor variance. I have included the recommended conditions here. They are included in the staff report. I will note that the township has not included a recommended request to request a park lane fee. The property was 2 lots and it would be returning to 2 lots. So staff felt it was unnecessary to request that as part of the recommended conditions. But the recommended conditions as included in the report include the reference plan with the draft copy provided to the Secretary Treasurer for review and approval. The in preparation draft deed for the severed lands, municipal taxes paid to date, that the applicant obtains an entrance permit to Azcona Avenue for both the retained and severed parcels, the water and sewer connection, that the applicant obtains the Planning Act approval as minor variance to recognize the reduced lot frontage and area, which is being heard concurrently tonight. That the applicant agrees that all fees, if incurred by the township with respect to the application, are paid for by the applicant, and that the conditions set out herein be completed within 2 years of the date of this decision. That's all I have regarding this application at this time, but available for any questions.
Thank you. Mr. Abernethy, do you have anything further to add to the application? Okay. Perfect. So the applicant has nothing further to add to the application. So thank you. Are there any persons who have either questions or wish to speak in favor or in opposition to the application? Please address your questions through me. The applicant may be asked to respond to each party. When commenting, please give your name and address for the minutes. I don't believe there is anybody speaking up, so I declare the public portion of the application is closed. Do any members of the committee require further clarification or wish to provide comments on this application? Member Kish.
Through the chair to staff, just a clarification for the setbacks on the side yard. Within this zoning area, the proposed does meet all the requirements that way. I just noticed the one side is smaller than the other, so.
Through the chair, yeah, so the property is zone residential 1, so the minimum side yard setbacks in this case are 1.5 meters.
So I don't see any further questions from the committee, so I'm going to call for a motion. So I have a motion before us identified as COA 2023-50, moved by member Hiles, second by member Kish, that staff report D23-028 be received, and that the matter of minor variance application A-15-23, the application be approved, and further that in the matter of consent application B05-23, the application be provisionally approved subject to the recommended conditions included as attachment 4 to staff report D23-028. I'm going to call for a vote. All those in favor, we are carried. So the hearing for this application is now closed. Mr. Abernethy, you're free to stay if you want. You can go. You're all good, and we're going to move on to the next application. So you can if you want, or you can go, but totally up to you. So moving on to the next application of this evening, with township staff briefly introduce the application and report on any written response to the notice circulated for agenda item E2, which is an application for consent B-0623 and B-0723.
Thank you, Chair. So our next applications for consent are B-0623 and B-0723, Gardy and Ferry, at 3244 and 3260 Hampshire Mills Line. I will note that Josh Morgan of Morgan Planning and Development is in attendance this evening tonight as the agent for the property owners in these files. Here we have a key map showing the location of the subject properties just on the northwest corner of the intersection of Hampshire Mills Line and Stockdale Road. The larger property shown here in red is 3244 Hampshire Mills Line, and the smaller property, the residential property, is shown in purple at 3260 Hampshire Mills Line. The 2022 aerial imagery of the property, again, the agricultural larger piece in red and the residential lot in purple here. So as mentioned, the subject lands are located at the intersection of Hampshire Mills Line and Stockdale Road. The proposal is to facilitate reciprocal lot additions by severing a portion of 3260 to be merged with 3244 and vice versa. The idea behind the reciprocal lot additions is to maintain the lot area of both of the parcels so that it maintains compliance with the zoning bylaw. And these applications would not result in the creation of a new lot. The lot addition is also to facilitate future development on 3244 Hampshire Mills Line. However, it is noted that that development is not the subject of tonight's applications. So this is the consent sketch that the applicant prepared with the application. The lands shown here in red would be severed from 3260 and added to 3244, thereby moving this property line over to the edge of the existing cleared area, essentially up to the tree line. When on site, those lands, you can't differentiate where that property line is at this time. The tree line essentially acts as that property line and gives sort of that visual cue. So the applicant is just looking to have that property line up with the edge of the trees there. And then based on the amount of lot area that is here, which is about 0.15 hectares, the applicants are proposing that reciprocal lot addition to account for the same amount of area here by extending the rear property line of this property back further. I will note that these lands here in green are already zoned rural residential through the township zoning bylaw, so that is why there is no requirement for those lands to be rezoned as a condition on the consents tonight. Just some site photos. The picture on the left here is that existing cleared area down along the side of the tree line. So you can see that those the existing vegetation there essentially acts as a lot line, or gives the impression of a lot line presently. So the application would just be to line that property line up with that vegetation. The picture here on the right is the existing accessory structure, which was noted on the smaller residential property during the site inspection. It was determined that the structure will require a building permit, and the applicant did request that a condition be imposed on the decision should the committee choose to approve the application to require the building permit be obtained. So as explained within the staff report, staff do generally concur with the professional planning opinion of Mr. Morgan and Ms. Mills as presented in their planning justification report. The lot adjustments are permitted for legal or technical reasons, such as minor boundary adjustments as proposed, where they do not result in the creation of a new lot, such as these applications. Staff did recommend that condition to ensure the building permit is obtained for the accessory building at 3260 Hampshire Mills line to address the requirements of the Ontario Building Code. There were no comments or objections from internal departments here at the township. The County of Simcoe did provide a letter of no concern, provided that the consent is for legal or technical reasons. And for those reasons, the Planning and Development Department has no objections to the provisional approval of the application, subject to the amended recommended conditions. Following the issuance and publishing of the staff report, staff noted that conditions requiring the severed lands to be merged with the benefiting lands were excluded from the recommended resolutions. So for those reasons, the bolded conditions are the proposed amendments. These conditions are pretty standard for this type of application. The first being that a reference plan be prepared to legally describe the lands which would be severed. A copy of the in preparation draft deed be provided for review, that the severed lands shall merge with and not be separately conveyable from the benefiting lands as legally described, and that an undertaking shall be provided from the owner's solicitor to that effect. That the applicant shall apply for and obtain Planning Act approvals to ensure that all of the lands associated with 3244 Hampshire Mills line, which is the larger agricultural property, be zoned agricultural. Taxes paid in full, any fees and disbursements would be the responsibility of the applicant, and that the conditions shall be completed within 2 years of the date of the decision. And then for consent B0723, the reference plan, the in preparation draft deed, the conditions to ensure that those lands merge, that the applicant apply for and obtain a building permit for that accessory building, taxes paid in full, any fees and disbursements are the responsibility of the applicant, and again, completed within 2 years. So I do have a recommended motion should the committee wish to see that. And as mentioned, the applicant is in attendance this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Morgan, do you have anything further you would like to add to the application? I know you're attending via Zoom, so you can unmute yourself and turn on your camera. And if you want to share your screen, I believe you're more than happy to, or if we have the presentation, we might be able to share it too, but totally up to you.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you, Chair. I don't think there's any need for me to go through my presentation. Mr. Oster gave a full overview of what we're proposing here. It's simply just essentially a trade of land. So 0.15 hectares of land from 3260 to 3244, and then another 0.15 hectares of land from 3244 to 3260. And we've read the conditions. We agree with all of them. And I'd be happy to answer any of your questions. And if you do have questions, I'm happy to pop up our sketch and more clearly explain that if that's necessary. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We'll let the public first, and then we'll get to us. So are there any persons who have either questions or wish to speak in favor or in opposition to the application? I'm seeing nobody pop up and nobody speak up. So if there's no further questions or comments, I declare the public portion of the application is closed. Do any members of the committee require further clarification or wish to provide comments on this application? Member Kish.
Through the chair to Mr. Morgan. in your report under the table 1 proposed minimum lot frontage, it states that there's 20 meters on Stocksdale Road. Just wondering where that frontage is, because it didn't really look like there was on most of the maps that I was given.
Over to you, Mr. Morgan.
Sure, yeah, no problem. Yeah, so the large agricultural parcel, which is the 3244 owned by the Gardy family, it actually extends and has 20 meters of frontage on to the south onto Stockdale Road. But I think or wait a minute, no, it doesn't. That's an error in our report. We're actually I suppose that's a conversation for another day. At some point in time, you may see me back in front of the committee again, asking for an additional boundary adjustment related to 3244. But that's not contemplated now. So I think that we're getting ahead of ourselves in our planning justification report and making reference to that 20 meters of frontage when actually it's not there. So I apologize for the misunderstanding. Actually, let me share my screen because I can make it very clear that way. Screen's just loading.
Oh, there we go. We see it now.
Okay, so yeah, so the boundary of 3244, if you can see my cursor, the boundary of 3244, it does not extend down to Stockdale. So you can just ignore that, and my apologies for that typo in our report.
No problem.
Perfect. Oh, yeah, I got Marikish, go ahead.
Through the chair to staff, with the minimum lot areas, are there any concerns with the agricultural zoning part not meeting the minimum requirement of 40? Or because we're doing just a swap, it doesn't matter at that point? Just asking for some clarification.
Township staff.
Through the chair to Member Kish, as the lot areas of the properties aren't changing through this application, they would be maintained. If any of the lands are undersized based on today's requirements by the zoning bylaw, they're deemed by the bylaw to comply as an existing lot. And as no changes are proposed through this application, the lands would continue to comply with the requirements of the bylaw.
Okay. Seeing as there's no further questions, I believe I can call for a motion. A couple motions or one motion, two things. So magically, I have a motion before us, identified as COA 2023-51, moved by Member Bossy, second by Member Hiles, that staff report D23-029 be received, and that the matter of consent application B-06-23 Gardy, the application be provisionally approved, subject to the amended recommended conditions as presented to the Committee of Adjustment at the November 21st, 2023 meeting, and that the matter of consent application B-07-23 Ferry, that the application be provisionally approved, subject to the amended recommended conditions as presented to the Committee of Adjustment at the November 21st, 2023 meeting. So I'm going to call for a vote. All those in favor? We are carried. So the hearing for that application is now closed. So have a good evening.
Thanks very much. Have a good night.
Have a good evening. So would township staff briefly introduce the application, report on any written response to the notice circulated for item number E3, which is an application for a minor variance identified as A-16-23.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just going to go full screen so that way you can see it properly. So the next application on our agenda this evening is minor variance application A-16-23, affecting the lands known as 1250 Grandview Lodge Road. We did receive additional correspondence since the publishing of the agenda from the township septic inspector. They did note that as a part of the septic reinspection program, an inspection of the subject property was conducted in June of this summer. At that time, it was noted that a sleeping cabin appears to have been relocated on top of the existing tile bed on the subject property. So on screen here is a key map of the subject property depicting the approximate location. It is at the end of Grandview Lodge Road behind Grandview Lodge. The property has frontage onto Sparrow Lake and the MNRF mapped Sparrow Lake provincially significant wetland. As you can see on the image here, the subject property is currently developed with a single detached dwelling and associated accessory structures, including a storage type shed and a sleeping cabin. The subject lands are currently zoned Shoreline Residential 3, again with that frontage onto the MNRF mapped Sparrow Lake PSW. A previous minor variance, A2121, was granted provisional approval by the Committee of Adjustment in October of 2022. The conditions of that application were not fulfilled, so the applicants have submitted a new minor variance application for consideration by the Committee of Adjustment, which includes an amended proposal and design. I just will reiterate again that although the property was subject to a previous Planning Act application, this would be considered a new application and would be evaluated the same as any other new application under the Planning Act. So the proposed minor variance in this case is to accommodate reduced setbacks both to the front yard and to the rear yard. The applicant proposes a minimum 16.35 meter front yard setback for the proposed dwelling with a minimum 3.9 meter front yard setback for an uncovered attached deck. Further, the applicants request a minimum 6.6 meter rear yard setback for the proposed dwelling. So through an examination of the application that was provided to staff, it became evident that further information was required to make an informed recommendation to the committee. The applicants have provided a proposed site plan and proposed block grading plan. It was noted that there are some differences in the proposed setbacks and site statistics indicated between the drawings. Additionally, as noted in the staff report, the chief building official has requested that the distance between the proposed dwelling and structures on site and the on-site septic system be confirmed prior to final approval. You will note on the screen here that there is a proposed attached screen porch. It does not appear that a request for reduced setback for the screen porch was included as a part of the application. So further information regarding the setbacks for that porch are requested, or confirmation that they do not require a variance to accommodate that construction. So this is just a copy of the lot grading plan. This was also included within the staff report. In furtherance of the discrepancies noted between the plans, it's recommended that the proposed site statistics, such as like setbacks, lot coverage, those types of items, and the proposed distance to the septic system be confirmed by an Ontario land surveyor to ensure that the requested variances are accurate and to allow for a comprehensive review of the application. This is both in the applicant's and the township's interest, as the engagement of an Ontario land surveyor at this stage of the development process would ideally seek to avoid a future situation if any Planning Act approvals were ever granted that they may be inaccurate or would not facilitate the development as proposed once confirmed by a surveyor at the building permit stage. So it's recommended that that sort of be conducted up front just to ensure that this is the final proposal and it doesn't need to come back to committee again. It's just emphasized due to the discrepancies between the plans provided. This is just a proposed elevation drawing. It doesn't appear to be included in the report, but this is what the applicants have included as their proposed elevation. So this is from facing the water side, so the front of the building. So as noted within the staff report and throughout the presentation tonight, the subject property directly abuts and does have frontage upon the MNRF mapped Sparrow Lake provincially significant wetlands. The policies of the PPS and the growth plan generally prohibit development adjacent to these types of features unless it is demonstrated that there would be no negative impact to the feature. Staff do acknowledge that the applicants did have a previous scoped environmental impact study prepared by Roots Environmental in support of their previous application. However, as it is still subject to all the same tests as a new application, it is a new application. Further information or confirmation from a qualified professional is requested just to demonstrate that the new proposal / design, which proposes additional development, can actually be appropriately accommodated on site and conforms with the provisions of the growth plan and the PPS. And just to ensure that the vegetation protection zone that was initially included as part of that application is appropriate for the proposed design at this time. So this is just a photo of the subject property depicting the existing dwelling. Beautiful photo of Sparrow Lake on a nice quiet day. And this is just a photo on site of the sleeping cabin as identified by the septic inspector. It was also noted that there appears to be a shipping container on the subject property, which unfortunately is not permitted in any residential zone. So further information will be requested to address the sleeping cabin. Is that proposed to be relocated, or how that may affect the development proposal, as well as information on how the property will be brought back into zoning compliance, including regarding the storage container. So as outlined in the staff report, further information is required to evaluate the application to the standards of the Planning Act. The chief building official did state that there's generally no objection to the proposed application for minor variance based on the details submitted with the minor variance application. The construction plans as proposed appear to allow the use of the existing sewage system, but any changes would require reassessment. Again, requesting that the confirmation of that setback between the buildings and the existing sewage system be confirmed prior to a final approval. Please note that the applicant is required to provide a site plan and lot grading plan that meets the requirement of the township building bylaw upon submission of a building permit. Planning staff do recommend that that be conducted at this stage just to ensure that the proposal is in its final state, to ensure that if any Planning Act approvals are granted, that they are confirmed, and that way the proposal can proceed as is proposed. And again, the septic inspector, following the publishing of the agenda, did provide additional comments. Just speaking to the property being part of the septic reinspection program, noted that the sleeping cabin had been relocated to over top of the sewage bed, indicating that structure should not be located on or near the septic bed area. No comments or objections were received from the township clerk, the public works department, or fire and emergency services. In light of the comments provided from the septic inspector following publishing of the report, I have included amended recommendation, so I can go through that now. So planning and development staff recommend deferral of the application pending further information. So the first two are, as were outlined in the staff report, lot grading plan prepared by a qualified professional, compliant with the provisions of the municipal building bylaw, including reference to a current plan of survey or confirmation from an Ontario land surveyor and a zoning matrix. Confirmation from a qualified professional regarding the proposed development and alignment with the former EIS and or recommended mitigation measures for a vegetation protection zone. Confirmation that the proposed development or amended proposal and subject property is in compliance with the township zoning bylaw and the Ontario building code, just to ensure, especially in this case, as the applicants propose to use the existing septic system, that it is in good working order and can support the development and is compliant with the Ontario building code. That's all I have regarding the staff report, but available for any questions.
Thank you very much. Does the applicant or his or her agent have anything further to add to the application?
Sure. Yeah.
So thank you. So I'm going to ask you to come up here. There's a microphone right there, and you just have to turn it on if it's not on, and you're free to speak.
Okay. Just wanted to obviously clear up a few of the items that were
just 1 minute. I just don't 100% know if you're the applicant, but could you just give us your name? That would help out. That would be great.
Correct. It's Bill Drummond. I'm the, as well as my wife, the owner of 1250 Grandview Lodge Road. And I'm just here to clear up some of the, I guess, issues with the staff report that were noted. I guess first of all, we'll start with the easy stuff. As far as the bunkie goes, the bunkie was moved in anticipation of relocating the septic tank. I'm a qualified septic installer, and I installed the septic on the property through the township, and have been in talks with Jeff Ambrose about what's going to happen in the future with the septic system. So the bunkie will be removed and dismantled off the property, as well as the small shed out front. That's proposed to be demolished once we obviously get a building permit and a demolition permit and proceed with construction. The container right now is in a holding pattern because we had building materials and tools on site, and we're anticipating receiving a building permit, and that has been delayed. So that's why that container's there currently. As far as grading plan issues, I was on talks with my engineer who did the original grading plan for the original variance, and showed them the comments from the township. And basically he went off of an existing survey, which I had, and I can, present to the committee and to the town itself. He feels that it wouldn't identify, like, all the setbacks and everything are accurate. And I guess reference to that plan hasn't been made. So obviously that can be shown quite easily. As well as the environmental, I spoke to the person from Roots who did the environmental as well, and discussed about what was happening and going for another variance. And again, he just reiterated that nothing has changed, because our current drawings are the same as the original one, except for some minor differences that won't affect will have any environmental impact onto the property or the lake itself. Again, these things can be reiterated to staff in a more formal letter, and shown that has been accounted for. It's just been a timing issue here. What else are we looking at here? We got the grading plan, we got the thing. Yeah. Other than that, at this point, you also referenced how we didn't apply or mention that the covered porch was in the application for a setback. We didn't put that in this application because we didn't put it in the original application for the original variance that was granted, and obviously weren't instructed to or felt that it was necessary as the first variance was granted, and felt that was part of the structure. And the setback that we requested, that hasn't changed for the whole structure, and that porch is part of it. We didn't realize at the time, it might be an oversight on our part or staff's part, that might have been identified here in the request. But again, looking at the original one, we basically copied the original request because nothing has changed as far as the setbacks that we required. Everything, the changes that we did meet, everything required to all your zoning bylaws, nothing exceeded it. So that's why the application basically mirrored the original application. As far as the septic goes, I might as well try and clear that up. As far as the setbacks go, and as far as if the septic is currently in good working order, obviously myself being in the business will re-identify the location of the septic, expose that for the building department or for the planning department. I can do that ahead of time prior to any decision. And obviously, if something is encroaching or needs to be, relocated, it was always our plan to either upgrade the septic system or change the septic system out to an advanced system if it doesn't meet the setbacks requirements of the 5 meters. So that, again, was right now we feel we're okay as far as the setbacks, but should, we lay out the building and find out that we're, not, can't conform to it, we have ample room in that envelope to, move that septic over or replace it with a new septic system.
Perfect. That's everything. Okay. Thank you very much. So first we have to Let the public speak if there's anybody. So are there any persons who have either questions or wish to speak in favor or in opposition to the application? And please address your questions through me. I'm seeing nobody here, and I don't see anybody popping up online. So I'm going to declare the public portion of the application closed. Do any members of the committee require further clarification or wish to provide comments on this application? Member Kish.
So through the chair to the applicant, as kind of staff noted during their presentation, the setbacks from the roadside, I'll say, the numbers do tend to vary from the one drawing that we got to the other drawing. So is there a reason why there's discrepancies between the two drawings? So one, I believe, is the grading plan, and the other one is like a site sketch.
Right.
I don't want to speak. I can basically read part of the letter that was sent from my engineer, but I don't think that he might have actually saw that sketch. I mean, his is the one that will be approved as far as being more accurate. Again, all of his setbacks comply in the grading plan. The site plan, I guess, because we were moving that around and we went through 3 design changes in order to basically move the structure as far back from the lake as possible. And then we asked for obviously some relief on the back part of the property in order that we could fit that in. I know that the engineer, I guess, would be more accurate per se than the actual site plan itself. We've located the property bars and been out there and have been as precise as possible that we can. So the minor difference, I guess, was never discussed or identified up to this point. So I haven't had time to sit down with my design company and see where the discrepancy comes into effect. I went over it with the engineer briefly this afternoon, and he assured me that what he's put on paper is is more accurate of the 2 drawings.
Okay. I guess my comment would be I would support township staff in the recommendation for a deferral of the application. I think for them to provide planning justification, they need all the information that pertains to this application, which may be different than what was submitted, and confirmation from a couple of the other parties along the way. The comment that I would provide to you, the applicant, is I would strongly encourage you to come back to the committee, depending if we defer the application with all the information. So if you want to include a deck, and then if you want to include a deck on the front of that property, then I would encourage you to put that into your application so that we have all the information ahead of time, rather than coming back 6 months from now, a year from now, 2 years from now. It's easier to have all the information up front than it is to be consistently seeing somebody seeking more and more and more. I'm sure that a month or 2 delay will provide you a lot of stress free moving forward through the whole process, if that's what you want. Because I have seen in the past where there has been denials on the 2nd or 3rd application because it just doesn't meet the requirements of the planning and zoning bylaw. So I would encourage you to think about what you want, what you need, if it matches up with your drawings, and apply for all that. Revise and apply for all that. That would be my recommendation. Is there any other comments or questions? I don't see any. So I'm going to call for a motion from staff. So I have a motion before me that's identified as Committee of Adjustment 2023-52. Sorry.
Okay. Try
Okay, thank you. Moved by member Kish, second by member Bossy, that staff report D23-30 be received and that the application for minor variance identified as A-16-23 be deferred pending receipt of additional information, including a lot grading plan prepared by a qualified professional compliant with the provisions of the municipal building bylaw, including a reference to a current plan of survey or confirmation from an OLS and zone matrix. Confirmation from a qualified professional regarding the proposed development and alignment with the former environmental impact study and or recommended mitigation measures for a vegetation protection zone, and confirmation that the proposed development be amended or amended proposal and the subject property is in compliance with the township zoning bylaw 2010-65 as amended and the Ontario Building Code. And a call for a vote. All those in favor? We are carried. So thank you very much. The hearing for this application is now closed. You're free to stay if you want or go. And we're going to move on to the next application. So would township staff briefly introduce E4, which is an application for a minor variance identified as A-18-23.
Thank you, Chair. So the next application this evening and the final application is minor variance A-18-23 for lands located at 4118 Graham Road. I will note that the applicant's agent, MHBC Planning, is in attendance this evening as well. Here we have a key map of the subject property. It is located along the eastern shores of T Lake. The property is shown here in red and accessed via Graham Road. The 2022 aerial imagery, the subject property outlined in red here. You can see the, at the time, existing dwelling, which has currently undergone redevelopment. There's also been the construction of a new sleeping cabin in this area back here. The former sleeping cabin here along the shoreline has been removed. A new detached garage has been constructed in this area of the property. And a new septic system servicing all of this development has been installed to the rear of the existing dwelling. So this application does seek minor variances to facilitate the construction of an in-water boathouse. As mentioned, the lands have recently undergone redevelopment of the existing dwelling, a new detached garage, the sleeping cabin, and that new septic system. The applicant does wish to accommodate an in-water boat lift within the proposed boathouse. So the increased envelope size is requested to achieve those adequate water depths for the operation of the boat lift. A summary of the variances which are requested being that increase to the maximum boathouse envelope size. The bylaw requires or permits up to an 8 by 10 meter envelope. The request is for an 8 by 12.2 meter envelope. An increase to the maximum supporting structure width, essentially being the docking portion of the boathouse, closest to the shoreline, where the bylaw would permit 2.4 meters. The request is for 5.2 meters. And then the last minor variance requested is again for an increased supporting structure width for the north/west dock finger. The bylaw permits 2.4 meters and 3.1 meters is requested. Township staff do acknowledge that the notice of hearing and the notice of posting, which was issued on November 10th, referred to the north finger dock when the variances were requested for the west finger dock. Staff are of the opinion that no further notice is required for this minor clarification, for which portion of the dock variances are requested. Just a site plan of the subject property, so you can see that proposed boathouse here with associated docking kind of here along the side yard of the property here. The existing dwelling is located in this area here, the septic system out behind with the sleeping cabin and along with that detached garage. This sketch here was provided by the applicant. It does do a really great job of depicting what is permitted by the zoning bylaw versus what is requested. So this hatched box that you can see, which is overlaid on top of the boathouse, is a compliant boathouse envelope. So that's an 8 by 10 meter envelope. The areas outside of that being this portion to the rear here, as well as the extension of the finger docks at the top. That is the that represents the requested minor variance for the increased boathouse envelope from 10 meters to 12.2. This finger dock here is the requested 5.2 meter width. So it does exceed that normal permitted width of 2.4. And then with the shore dock, or the dock portion closest to the shore, due to the design of the boat slip, these triangular pieces have to be accounted in one of the docking widths. So the applicant chose to request those design features be accounted to this portion of the supporting structure. So that represents the 5.2 meter dock width. However, when measured to the back of the boat slip here, you can see that the width is actually 4.3 meters. Next slide here just shows some elevation drawings of the proposed boathouse. It does have some roll-up doors, which could be open or closed. So it may give the impression of more of a boat port when the doors are rolled up. However, the doors can be down, so it does meet the definition of a boathouse. Just some site photos of the subject property. This is standing in front of the existing dwelling, which is undergoing redevelopment. You can see that there is some vegetation within the front yard here in these site photos. As you will note, staff are recommending the inclusion of a condition to require minor variance development agreement should the committee choose to approve the application. That agreement would just be in place to protect the existing vegetation, which is all around the shore, but also to allow for some improvement to that vegetation protection zone where feasible. Staff do understand, there are some limitations with this property, given that there is lots of exposed bedrock. But just where feasible, staff would like to see a bit of an improvement. This photo here, I feel, gives the committee a good indication of kind of where that boat port is going. It would sit sort of in this area here, which does sort of form part of a small cove around the property. The boathouse generally would not protrude any further than this point here, so staff are not concerned in terms of the additional length that the boathouse may have, causing any sort of navigational hazards on the water, and it would kind of be tucked in behind that point, which does kind of help to blend that structure into the property. And again, just a couple more site photos here once it loads. So you can get a better context of that dwelling, which has undergone reconstruction, and some of the vegetation that's existing within the front yard. So as detailed within the staff report, staff do generally concur with the professional planning opinion of Mr. Chisholm and Mr. Pock, as presented within their planning justification report. The minor variances are to provide for adequate water depth for the operation of that in-water boat lift contained within the boathouse. The recommendation for a development agreement to establish a vegetation protection zone within the front yard to protect that existing vegetation and improve where feasible, staff do feel is prudent, just given the amount of redevelopment which has occurred on the property in the recent year, just to ensure that that vegetation is protected moving forward. So for those reasons, staff do feel that, subject to the recommended conditions, the application does conform to the applicable policies and meets the 4 tests as required by the Act. There were no comments or objections received from the building division, the clerk's office, or the Public Works and Fire and Emergency Service departments. So for those reasons, the Planning and Development Department has no objections to the provisional approval of the application subject to the recommended conditions. which be that municipal taxes are paid to date. The construction shall be in substantial compliance with the plans submitted with the application, as well as the property owner enters into a development agreement with the municipality to establish a vegetation protection zone to protect that existing vegetation on the property and restore where possible. Provide for additional plantings of native and self-sustaining species, the collection of securities to implement that VPZ, silt fencing as related to revegetation, and any costs associated with the agreement, including its registration on title, be borne by the applicant. So that concludes my presentation. As mentioned, the applicant's agent is in attendance this evening and may wish to address the committee. But as always, if any questions, happy to answer. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Pock, do you have anything further to add to the application?
Yes, good evening, everyone. Can everyone hear me okay?
Can.
Perfect, thank you. And thank you, Mr. Oster, for your presentation. So my name is Jonathan Pock. I'm here on behalf of our client, Mr. Lucassen. I think Mr. Oster's presentation almost mirrored my entire presentation I had planned. The only thing that I would like to show, if I could, would be just some conceptual renderings of that weren't included in our planning justification report. If you give me 1 second. Can everyone see that okay?
Yeah.
Perfect. So just wanted to leave this up for a moment, and just a couple of key things that I wanted to not run through my entire presentation, but just wanted to make committee aware of is that the property is located within a small cove area that's sheltered from the navigation of boat traffic. So the projection that's proposed for the in-water boathouse wouldn't result in a safety hazard for watercraft navigation. Secondly, with respect to the supporting structure width, it's mainly contained within the inside of the boathouse and wouldn't be discernible from the lake when viewed from the lake. And then with respect to the dock finger width, there was, prior to the submission of the application, there was some pre-consultation meetings held with staff just to nail down of what would be appropriate from a development perspective. So we've actually scaled back the proposed dock finger width of that western dock, mainly just to accommodate, not for entertainment purposes, but mainly just for enough spacing for some chairs and some towels and enjoyment for the lake there. That's why we kind of propose that dock width for that dock finger. I would also note that the proposed boathouse does comply with the required setbacks from the projection of the interior lot line, so there's no relief required there. So just in terms of separation from neighboring properties, that is complied with. The boathouse itself is similar to that of other shoreline structures that are found on Tea Lake. And the proposed boathouse wouldn't require any of the removal of the shoreline vegetation. And as Brad or Mr. Oster mentioned, there is a recommended condition that our client is okay with including that development agreement to preserve and enhance some of that shoreline vegetation. So that's all I wanted to add, but happy to answer any questions that committee or members of the public might have. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Are there any persons with either questions or wish to speak in favor or in opposition to the application? If there are, please address your questions through me. I'm seeing that there's nobody here and nobody has popped up, so I declare the public portion of the application closed. Do any members of the committee require further clarification or wish to provide comments on this application? Seeing as there's none, we've gone through the conditions with township staff. I'm going to call for a motion. So I have a motion before us. It's identified COA 2023-53, moved by member Heil, second by member Kish, that staff report D23-031 be received. And further, that minor variance application A-18-23 be provisionally approved, subject to the conditions included as attachment 6 to staff report D23-031. I'm going to call for a vote. All those in favor, we are carried. The hearing for that application is now closed. You can have yourself a good night, Mr. Bach.
Thank you, members of the committee.
There is no reports from officials. There's no correspondence. I'm going to call for a motion for adjournment. We have a motion identified as COA 2023-54. Moved by member Kish, second by member Bossy, that the Committee of Adjustment be adjourned at 7:30 p.m. on Tuesday, November 21st, 2023. I call for a vote. All those in favor, we are carried. Good night.